And welcome back, one and all. Welcome back to episode 2 of the book club. I am once again joined by the Canadian professor of music and literary genius that is...
Zerfall.
Don't fucking ask me what was going on there. And I'm once again TrevimusPrime. Hello, mate. How are you?
Not too bad.
Okay, so as promised, we are going to be looking at between chapters 2 up to 6 of Neuromancer.
That's right.
So let us begin. Chapter 2 kicks off with the character that we discussed last time, who's revealed to be called Molly. And she has taken Case, now I think it's the Hilton or something, I can't quite remember. And she's discussing the fact that she's located him for a job.
Yes.
And we are introduced to the character of Armitage, who, annoyingly, I imagine him as the guy from Shadowrun. Oh well.
That's how a lot of us were introduced to that name.
Well, yeah, and I think it is a complete homage, or whatever you want to call it, to the character in this.
Yes.
I think the only difference is he has got brown hair in the book, but in Shadowrun he's blonde.
I think that's right.
Yeah, but it's hard not to sort of imagine him as that character. So, okay. So this chapter, basically, you've got Case going from this washed up, blah, 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 and Armitage comes in and goes, I've got a chance for you to get fixed. So how about you help out here a little bit, because I'm very tired, as I mentioned before we started recording. Explain what happens.
Well, so he's, as we mentioned earlier, he got neurologic damage from a toxin that was delivered to him after he tried to steal from a previous employer. And, he's spent all the money he had saved up from when he was a Class A cowboy going through the Matrix. He spent it all trying to get himself all fixed up, and now he's just been trying to burn himself out as quickly as possible. And this guy swoops in and says, hey, we can fix you up, we have the technology. And he uses the technology and the procedure to fix him as payment for said procedure from one of the street doctors. He trades the software and whatnot required to perform the surgery. And he gets all fixed up, but with some modifications that he wasn't expecting.
Yeah. Now, this is a real... I mean, I'm hoping you're going to sort of go, oh yeah, about this bit. Escape from New York.
I've never seen Escape from New York.
Fuck's sake. Okay, so popular John Carpenter movie from the 80s. Kurt Russell is an ex-military, low-key, he's now a mercenary. And he's sent in to New York, which is now a maximum security prison, to rescue the president. And they say, okay, sure, you go in there, and we will drop all the charges. You rescue him, you come back, you're a free man. The head of the police is played by Lee Van Cleef, who was in, I think Good, Bad and the Ugly or something like that. And he turns around to him and injects Snake Plissken, played by Kurt Russell, with a nanochip and says, okay, you're on a timer. If you don't get back in this particular sort of allotted period of time, this chip's going to explode and your head's going to go flying off into the distance. So I like to think, because they were sort of done around the same time, it's pretty much a sort of grab to that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What they've done is they've put, I want to say neurotoxin sacks.
Yeah, it's the exact same neurotoxin that ruined him the first time.
And it's on some, I don't know how the hell you set it to some, well, they say timer. It was something like they would dissolve. They're
dissolved after a certain period of time, so if he doesn't play by their rules, they're like, oh well, they're staying in there.
Exactly. So the nice thing about this especially is the fact that, okay, he's got his chance to be this awesome hacker again, but it's on their rules. So he's got it back, but if he doesn't play by their rules, because he does actually argue with Armitage, and remember rightly, they will put him right back to where he started.
They fixed his kidneys up even better than before so that he can't get high on hexagons anymore.
Yeah, I think mostly due to just to make sure he actually got on with the job, which is awesome. But random note, Snake Plissken from Escape from New York is what Snake from Metal Gear is based on.
Oh.
A little bit of random knowledge for you. So go watch Escape from New York, for God's sake. Also watch Escape from LA. Very good sequel.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, actually.
I have a friend at work that actually recommended both those movies a little while ago, too. So
watch them if you want cheesy action. It's, you know.
Oh, it's from that era of cheesy action movies, so
See, oh no, actually, you need to watch it, and then we will have to discuss the end of Escape from LA because it's awesome. We'll slip that into this at some point. Okay, so he gets this chance, he gets fixed up. Now, I'm going to mention this for no apparent reason, really, but I thought it was quite important. Now, Molly is described as being a street samurai, which is a term which is also used in Shadowrun, but she's also described as being a working girl. For no apparent reason, and I'm going to open this up, I think it's in Chapter 3, she sleeps with Case. I still don't know why. How he's written it, okay. His orgasm flaring blue in a timeless space. A vastness like the Matrix, where the faces were shredded and blown away down hurricane corridors, and her inner thighs were strong and wet against his hips. So what the fuck? Where did that come from? 1 minute.
I think. Do you know what? In all honesty, I think a lot of the times these scenes are just added to the books.
Yeah.
Because...
I mean, 1 minute, she's knocking him out to do the surgery, and the next minute he is in the cheap motel, and she rode him that way, impaling herself, slipping down on him again and again until they both came.
Yeah, there's actually literary awards given out for the worst sex scenes in general fiction.
Usually when I'm reading a sex scene, I don't like to read the word labia. His fingers spread across her labia. Why is... Oh, God's sake, William Gibson, what were you thinking?
Yeah, so that's the thing, is that authors of this type of novel are really bad erotica writers normally. But they feel the need to include the sex scenes to make it seem more real, I guess. But it never works out well.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, I do like the imagery. His orgasm flaring blue in a timeless space. Oh, if sex was actually that good. But that sort of caught me off guard, and I don't know why I've stuck with it. But it's sort of a case of, okay, sure, Molly is being paid to get him and protect him at this point to make sure that he is available for the job. But why the hell does she start sleeping with him?
Maybe she was bored.
Maybe.
They don't really go into it. I mean, they obviously start some sort of relationship while this is all going on.
Yeah, I mean...
But it's sort of... I don't know. It's not an actual relationship. It's very, very casual. But they definitely share the bed for the part of the book that we've been reading
quite
so
a few
far.
times, from what I remember. I mean, if you'd read Johnny Mnemonic or seen the movie, obviously that she's the character. She's not the character from the movie because they changed her name, but she is the character from the book. Mm-hmm. So I mean, technically, this isn't actually that long after that. So was in love with this character called Johnny, who unfortunately she lost. There's this. I'm sure.
I think they explain later in the book. She makes some reference to him.
Yeah, actually, I think that's at the end of Chapter 6, or is it the beginning of Chapter 7? We might have to just mention that, actually, when we get to it, because I think if you haven't read if you've read Johnny Mnemonic, you'll instantly go, oh, she means that. But if you don't, you think, well, maybe she's talking about Case, or she's talking about Armitage, or anyone.
Yeah.
There's actually another great bit here where she leans against him, and he feels her sunglasses push against him. And he goes to actually touch her face, and she says, "No, your fingerprints."
Yeah,
it's this list. I know this. I'm dwelling. I'm really dwelling on this. I don't know why. Anyway, I will put that page down. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if they go to meet Finn.
I think that they do. That's definitely in Chapter 3. They meet up with him because they want to be able to talk in actual privacy. In the future, that's hard to come by, and also get a scan done to see if they're actually
the sacs are actually implanted
in there or anything.
Yeah. I mean, this is the problem with me not quite remembering. I mean, if memory serves, they do actually confirm the sacs are there, though, don't they?
Well, I think that they can. If I recall, let me see if I have it here.
Because I've got this bad feeling that they're not actually there, but I don't remember if I'm,
No, I don't think they confirm that they're there, but I don't think they can confirm that they're not, because of what they are. They probably wouldn't show up on the scan. But he doesn't have anything like a a bomb in his head or anything like that.
So, anyway, they've talked to Finn, and now I would like to discuss probably my favourite part of the book so far, which is the heist. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong here. Is the heist to get the construct AI?
Yeah, they're going to get. I can't remember which one. Yeah, I think they got Flatline. It says here.
Flatline. Yeah.
Only millimeters from the green dot that indicated the location of Dixie Flatline's construct. Who, as mentioned earlier, that he's dead. And he's an AI construct now.
He's dead, and he's one of Case's sort of mentors, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
Now they need to get Flatline for this big job they're going to do. And at this stage, they haven't really talked about what the big job is. Well, from what I understand.
Just that this is going to be a walk in the park compared to it.
What I quite like about the whole heist idea is Case has basically thrown himself into decking, and he's back to being fucking awesome at it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I quite like is they've installed a switch, so he can literally jump in and out of seeing through Molly's eyes.
Yeah, apparently it's a form of entertainment in the future for people to. It seemed to me they referenced it like it was something that some people did a lot of the time, and you could say a celebrity might have the hardware installed in their body to let people jump in and experience what they're experiencing, and people would use that as entertainment.
It's a similar thing that I think they use in Ghost in the Shell, actually, as well, where you sort of jump into the cyborgs and basically fuck said cyborg, but you're actually watching yourself through their eyes. Oh, Japanese. Love you. So I quite like that. Now, they meet a group called the Panthers.
Yes.
I think they call them the Modern Panthers, who are basically one of these. They describe subcults in Neuromancer, how they sort of will spring up for a couple of weeks at a time and die off, and they're always these radical groups that try and. Sometimes they're misfits, sometimes they're terrorists. And the Modern Panthers are, I wouldn't say they're full-on terrorists, but they are sort of mischief makers.
Yeah, they kind of revel in chaos a bit.
So they employ them, and they go after this construct. And it all seems to be going really well until it talks about how Molly takes down a security guard and gets in the elevator. And then it starts talking about something else completely. And then he snaps back to Molly, and she is fucked up. Her leg is a mess, she's bleeding, and she's won a fight against 3 of these security guards, but she's taken an utter pounding. And I quite like it, because when it flicks into her point of view, he can feel the pain, he can see all the things she's seeing, she's stumbling around, and I don't know, it's just that idea that, okay, why the hell would you... If you're gonna, fair enough, they're seeing through her eyes because she's got cybernetics, but why the hell would you want to feel what she's feeling? Why would they give him that?
Yeah, it seems like it must be like an all-or-nothing technology or something.
Well, this isn't actually going back a little bit. There's a bit where she's running through this market to meet the Panthers in the first place. He jumps into her, and she knows he's there. So what does she do? She twists her own nipple.
Yeah.
William Gibson. Everyone, slightly perverted.
Yep. So, and what's interesting about that scene where he first jumps into her after she's broken her leg is that he actually has to jump back out right away because he wasn't expecting it.
Oh god, yeah. And I mean, the fact is, they managed to do the heist, but up until this point, they've sort of portrayed Molly as this pretty much superhuman character, a bit like Trinity from The Matrix.
Yep. Who
can't be hurt, who's fast. And I think actually Trinity was based on the character of Molly. I mean, don't quote me on that, but it sounds about right, especially with the sunglasses. But this is the point where you you understand that she's vulnerable, which then opens her up as a lot more of a likeable character. Because at this point, I just saw her as, a hired gun and someone who randomly fucks the main character. So, yeah, exactly. What happens after this?
So, she gets taken they get back to the lobby. There's utter pandemonium. The way that they caused confusion so she could get in there was They convinced the people in the building that someone had put I believe, some sort of neurotoxin or something in the water supply. But then they convinced the police that someone had put like a new designer drug or something into the water supply that would cause people. The drug causes 80% of the people that use it to become very violent and murderous for no reason. So these people are trying to get out of the building because they think they're going to be killed by a pathogen that's going through the building. And the police see them all rushing for the door and think this is a murderous mob that's going to be coming out to the streets and wreaking havoc. So they clash in the lobby. And that's a pretty good distraction, but everyone except for the Panther and Moderns are surprised by how much violence is actually going on there.
Everyone, this is why Zerfall has a doctorate in archaeology. I don't know why I'm saying that, but he's also very good at bringing people back on track.
So, I guess Molly gets taken by the Panther Moderns to get fixed up.
Yeah.
And
oh wait, there's a great quote actually. Me thinking about it, because she injects herself or just whacks in a load of like neuro stims or something to keep her going. And what Gibson says here is that even if you were walking on bloody stumps with these like stims, you'd be able to keep going.
Yeah, and they run out right near the end, and it describes how it's not like he's going offline, but she just fades into a blackness.
Yeah,
of what he can sense coming from her.
Okay, so she got the AI, etc., etc. He's obviously at the point now where he's awesome at bloody hacking, and she's injured.
Yep.
Armitage. Now, I'm not entirely sure how the court, because obviously the way the chapters are done, they seem to go see Finn quite a lot.
Yep.
Their tech guy, but I'm trying to. Armitage, basically, we don't know a lot about him.
No.
And in chapter 2, he starts talking about the Screaming Fist, this sort of load of cowboys that were sent in to take down, I want to say, Russia.
I think that's
for some
right.
reason. And he said, oh, I was there, etc., etc. And they're like, well, there was no Armitage at Screaming Fist. But I'm not entirely sure how he does it, but he manages to get some information about who the hell Armitage is.
Well, what it was is the Panther generals give a name to Case to pass on to Molly, and it's actually the name of another AI, Wintermute. And using that information and some other information she gets from the Panther generals, they cross. They do a search of the web, and they find a spot where Armitage has a database that they want to go and check out.
Which is based in London, if I remember rightly?
I think so. Yep. And
I'm
so...
trying to find Armitage's actual name. It does actually say it.
It does say his actual name, yes.
I want to say Cortez, but that can't be right.
No, it's...
this is a message for you.
Corto.
Wintermute. Corto.
Colonel Willis Corto.
And it does actually give a bit of backstory to Armitage or Corto, whatever you want to call him. Now, basically, they sent all these jockeys over in light aircraft that were completely stripped down to nothing. Now, from what I understand, there was a pilot in each craft and there was a jockey in each craft. Now, they went over to basically use the very early type of cybernetic attack, and the Russians EMP'd the crap out of them.
That's right.
And the Armitage character basically survived the crash, completely messed up, manages to commandeer a helicopter and fly it back to neutral space.
Well, the best part is when he gets back to neutral space, they shoot him down.
And he gets even more messed up. And this guy is a complete hard ass. And you sort of look at this character and go, okay, I've got a bit more respect for you. And they want to put him on trial for what he's done. And he's like, he's a complete mess. And this bloke comes to him and he says, we can't let you go to trial like this. We need to fix you up because you are a mess.
Yeah. It was like a CIA and a Pentagon put together this attack, and then when it comes through, they fix him up and put him on court in front of the television cameras and everything, and get him to save the key people in the Pentagon and whatnot. Well, because they're being shut down. I think that's what happens is they shut down the CIA.
Yeah.
Based off of this attack going forward without authorization or something like that.
there's a great bit now. The basically the Secretary of State or whatever who comes to see him. They sit down, I want to say, in a coffee shop, and he says something on the lines of either things are going to be hard for you or people are going to come after you, and he just crushes the guy's throat.
Yeah, I think he was expecting some help from this guy after going through all this stuff with him, and he's pretty much like, oh, I can't be seen talking to the wrong people anymore. And so he just uses his new arms to crush his throat, because I believe his arms are... Or maybe it's his legs that had to be replaced.
I think a good chunk of him. Okay, you have wheeled someone out. Your country has betrayed you. You fix this guy up so he can protect your guys, and you fit him with some awesome cybernetics. Are you idiots? And they wonder why he kills him. And then he goes up. They talk about what Armitage then goes on to do. He's like he runs a heroin. He runs a drug lab. He runs a drug lab. He becomes an assassin at one point.
Yep, hired muscle, all sorts of stuff. All sorts of bad stuff.
Armitage is a dangerous character. And so that's Armitage in a nutshell. That's what we know about him at the moment.
And he's kind of obsessed with the idea that he was betrayed by these people. He wants back at them. Exactly.
I mean, we still don't actually know why the hell he's picked Case, because they actually do say quite a few times, Case isn't the best hacker by any means. I mean, they
had to go get a construct to help him with this job.
Exactly, and actually sort of rebuilding Case, they could have probably got a much more qualified person that's brain wasn't fried to do the job. But from what I understand and what I remember, Armitage isn't the one making the decisions, and this is where we get to Wintermute.
Yes. They found that he's probably the one that's paying Armitage and telling him what to do. But that's about all we know so far.
Is it?
By the end of Chapter 6 it is.
Are you sure?
I thought so. Oh, no, we found out that there's a corporation that's like a family-run corporation that nobody owns any stake in, that is in orbit of Earth. They live in, which is interesting. People live in Earth's orbit, and it's considered a separate political zone where they have their own laws and everything.
Yeah, it's a bit like Isaac Asimov's The Robots, where all the well-off people go to live in the stars, and all the underprivileged and all that stay on Earth, I think, anyway. Okay, so me and Zerfall basically just had to go through the entire bloody of Chapter 5 to try and figure this out, which is not good, considering I only read Chapter 5 earlier. I don't know about you.
I was halfway through it, and then I think it was a split for me. I read part of it, and then again.
We are pondering currently about Wintermute, and it is the fact that it says in Chapter 5 that Wintermute is the recognition code for an AI, and even more strangely, it has Swiss citizenship. So, because of the way it's written, I'm pretty sure it is essentially saying that Wintermute is an AI, but the fact that me and you, off recording, have just basically sat here for the last couple of minutes going, there? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a very interesting idea that the one pulling the string is an AI, and they mentioned that if he's the one pulling the strings, AIs aren't normally allowed any sort of autonomy. Autonomy.
Try again. Yeah, I mean, it's more that he's got... Why has he got Swiss citizenship?
He's got limited Swiss citizenship. He's apparently pulling the strings in this operation, but he's owned by a parent corporation, Tessier Ashpool.
And Tessier Ashpool, correct me if I'm wrong, was also something to do with Screaming Fist, wasn't it?
It may have been.
I think we'll have to do it was maybe something to do with Screaming Fist, because if we question this, we're going to go back through the book again.
Yes.
And I'm going to have to cut more of this out, which we don't want.
But we know that they're a very, very large, it's a family-run, multi-generational family-run company that has, apparently it puts people in and out of cryogenic storage as it sees fit to who should be running the company at the time, and there's very mixed up who's in charge of what. It's a very corporate family.
But, I mean, they've mentioned, fair enough, that Wintermute is owned by these guys, but does it actually mention anything else about them?
Yeah, it goes on. Finn tells a story about
Oh yeah, the trafficking, the fencing stuff.
yeah, and he finds a head that's supposedly a piece of artwork, but it could have been more than that. That was a head that could talk.
But he doesn't get to find out because some delightful Japanese Yakuza type gentleman tips up and takes it.
Yeah, which is interesting because instead of killing him and just taking it, he pays him the full amount that he said that he was going to try to get for it. So that's when they look into it and realize that it was probably someone hired by that family.
Yeah, and I mean, we talk about this story, and okay, he tells it, and we mention Wintermute, but then pretty much that's it for now. We don't get really any more information, do we?
No.
I like the fact that as well they say, oh yeah, Wintermute's an AI. Okay, Wintermute is pulling the strings. Excuse me? And they're not shocked by this at all.
No, apparently there's some pretty advanced AI, though I think at some other point in the thing they mention AI as not being the most intelligent things because they're just...
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a weak plot point that maybe they like Gibson shouldn't have brought in this. Because to be honest, you get to that point, and I just looked at it and went, okay, and kept reading.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't stop me in my tracks, because at the moment, you focus too much on Armitage.
Yeah.
Especially considering they've just... Well, actually, they haven't even given him his backstory, I think, because bloody... Yeah, because Chapter 6 goes all on about Armitage.
Yep, so... It may be they mentioned that a little bit early in the story. It could have been something that maybe came later and it would have had a little more punch and stood out a little more. So I guess the only thing we didn't really touch on, which I thought was really interesting, is the fact that Flatline is a ROM-based construct. So
yeah.
When he first plugs him in, he's like... This voice just comes... There's no visual representation of him. It's just a voice in his head of the personality. And he says to him, like, hey, do you remember me? It's Case. He's like, oh, yeah, I remember you. Like,
So yeah, he's got his memories.
He's like, Miami Joe Boy, quick study. That's what I know about you. And he's like, okay, so he's got his memories. And he says, what do you remember from before I said anything to you? And he's like, I don't remember anything. Right? And then he's like, hold on a second. And he pulls the ROM out and plugs it back in. And he pops back up. And he's like, he's talking to him a little bit about something else, and he explains to him, you are a ROM construct. And he's like, well, if you say so, who are you? And he's like, I'm Case. And he's like, oh, Miami, Joe Boy, quick study, I remember you. So it shows how it's like, as soon as, it's just like any other ROM you might have, the memory doesn't get added to whatever happens to him after this point. Every time he gets plugged in, it's a fresh start for him from exactly when he got scanned to be made into a ROM.
Oh, exactly. I think there's the last line he says to him as well. It's something along the lines of, right, you're going to help me do a job. And he goes, well, I haven't got much choice in the matter.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The fact is, he has actually got some sort of... He's
He's
a
got
construct.
his personality and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So, but he has to help them.
Mm-hmm.
I know we haven't really mentioned it this episode, but at any point when you were reading this, did it feel dated? At this point,
not really too dated. No. Sometimes when they mention technologies and stuff, you think, oh well, we've kind of already figured out ways around some of this stuff. But at the same time, it's very much... I guess it has kind of a timeless quality to it.
Yeah, I mean, I know last episode I dwelled on the fact that it felt very 80s.
Like with the arcade still and everything.
Oh yeah, but once you get past that first stage, it all becomes very plausible again.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean?
Yep.
It works.
And even this, it being a ROM where there's no memory being added to it, you'd think that with today's technology we'd probably have a workaround about it. But you know what? A human personality and brain is rather complex. So, you know what? Even in the future, when they first try to copy someone's brain to a computer, it maybe something that's more like, yes, it has your personality and it'll make the same sort of decisions as you, but it's so complex that it's into a cartridge that is hardwired.
I think the thing is, though, they're talking about AIs, and fair enough, they've made this construct, but don't you think perhaps they could have made the construct a little bit better? If they can construct an AI, why the hell can't they give him some sort of residual memory? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, surely that would have been a better idea. Or Unless, of course, you're meant to look at the construct as literally a manual. So if you want to know something, instead of reading it, you literally go, hey, how do I hack into this piece of ice? And it tells you, rather than it being able to help you.
Yeah, it might also be true that, I mean, I'm probably reading a little bit too much between the lines here, but a ROM construct, you'd have less of a moral issue with it because it's not actually an artificial intelligence. It's just a bit of a program.
Yeah.
Where an artificial intelligence is maybe a little more sentient, and because it has residual memory and stuff, it's actually going to be affected by things you do to it.
See, I like this. This episode, I dwelled on the fact that William Gibson can't write sex scenes. Zerfall is dwelling on the ROM. Each to their own. I'm trying to think if there's anything actually else. I mean, as daft as it sounds, fair enough. That is that's 4 chapters condensed down, and fair enough. I know we're going to edit some stuff out, but technically we've probably been talking for half hour. But I mean, essentially, that is everything that really happens.
Mm-hmm. I think the only other important thing to mention is that Case seems to be keeping the fact that he's gotten Armitage's history from Molly, and I don't know if it's more of he's just trying to spare her while she's recovering, worrying about it, or if he's trying to keep it on the down low until the information might be more useful. I don't know that I would, but I'm inherently suspicious of people from the future. Whereas he has no reason really to not trust her, as she's backed him up several times in a lot of things where she wouldn't necessarily have really had to. But, I mean, as she is being paid, so...
Well, yeah. I'm just going to stem your distrust of people from the future from the time you accidentally watched Time Cop. Oh, God. Jean-Claude Van Damme coming back in time is a horrifying thought in itself. Yeah, I mean, in the end of the day, she has got the blades on her fingers. Fair enough, she's had sex with him, and apparently it was quite interesting. But in the end, she's helping him out. I won't sort of deny that. He's got these explosive chemical sacs in his brain, maybe. But I personally, and obviously I'm not being prejudiced because I can't remember much actually at this part of the book at all, but I really don't think he actually trusts her. As much as he maybe wants to.
Mm. I think it's a fair enough thing to assume that he doesn't, because he's asked her about when he found out about the sacs in his bloodstream. He asked her what Armitage has on her.
Yeah.
And she doesn't really let that information up.
Yeah. And now you've said that, I wonder if she does. And actually, I'm starting to wonder if she's sleeping with him as well, because she has to. I
think she just mentioned that she's getting paid for the job.
Yeah, but does getting paid for the job also include sleeping with him to make sure that he stays on the job?
Oh,
and therefore, maybe the chemical sacs are completely false. There's actually something we did completely forget, and that, can you remember way back in chapter 1? He has a girlfriend, doesn't he?
Well, he has an ex-girlfriend.
She gets killed.
She does.
Before they leave Chiba, and I don't know why I've only just thought about that.
No, and the thing is when she gets killed, it seems like the reason behind it is didn't she steal his pretty much his account?
Yeah.
And she tries to fence it, and he assumes that the people that killed her figured it was easier just to kill her and take the money than to pay her for the privilege to take the money.
The only reason I bring up her death, I mean, obviously apart from Molly, is the fact that essentially what Gibson's done there is he's gone, right, okay, so this guy's got nothing, but I've written in something, so if I kill her off, that's it. He's got nothing to go back to. You know what I mean? It completely kills off that first... I mean, really, it literally is. The first chapter is your background, and now we're on this, to be honest, quite tumultuous journey. And it doesn't really let up from here. I think we're going to end up with a lot more sort of twists and turns, and it's going to be interesting, because obviously I've read the book before, you've had it highly praised to you.
Yes.
But I can't remember what happens. And it's quite exciting, actually.
Yeah, they're building up things pretty well. Like there's a lot of subplots going on here, which hopefully they get all wrapped up. One of my pet peeves is when they make a subplot in a book and it doesn't get wrapped up.
They do. I mean, I think I've spoke to you before. I mean, when I last read it, I got to the end and I started to get a little bit bored. And that wasn't the book's fault. I think it was literally just a case of I wanted to know what was going to happen. So how I remember the ending probably isn't how it actually ends. But even knowing vaguely the ending, it's not making me understand the rest of the book, which is great. I mean, you should be able to pick up a book years after you've read it, and for it to be a good experience again, which it is.
Yes.
Okay, then. Do you think we've rattled on enough for tonight?
I think so. I think we've covered the most interesting points in these chapters.
Not only have we talked for quite some time, but this has bounced around so many times.
Yes, you're going to have quite the challenge ahead of you putting this back together in a coherent piece.
I'll have a go.
All right, well, I think that's it for this episode of Book Club. I'm Zerfall.
I'm TrevimusPrime.
And I hope to see you all next time.
Bye. That'll do.